place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more light and peace entering your body and mind. And with every exhale, feel like you're able to let go of all tension from your body, along with anything that you do not want in your mind. Inhaling peace and exhaling as you let go. We see ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain, in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth. This magical bonfire lights the grove and us with that sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it burns away easily and efficiently everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also call upon our angels, our guides, and our teachers. We ask that they guide us as we walk upon the way, helping us to become happier, more powerful, more magical, more peaceful, and more loving people. Blessed be. We talk a lot about banishing in magic. We want to be able to release things that we don't want, as well as to create things we do want. Nature abhors a vacuum. Sometimes we misunderstand and we think that we are banishing things, banishing circumstances, banishing conditions. An important part of the banishing process that many times is overlooked is that we need to relinquish our investment in these things, our attachment to these things. If you don't understand the power of relinquishment, then your banishing is temporary at best. Because you may be able to banish a particular circumstance, but it'll just pop up as a different manifestation again and again, because you haven't banished your attachment to it in your mind. Many people don't want to be honest with themselves about how attached they are to their issues, their problems. They don't want to have any sense that they have any hand in it whatsoever. And they always point the finger outside of themselves as saying, this is happening to me. Something's happening to me. I have nothing to do with this. And they get very upset if you even suggest that they have any hand in it whatsoever. Or the opposite happens. They start feeling really down on themselves and guilty about the fact that they created it for themselves. Neither one of those extremes is the truth. The ego's primary goal is to destroy us. Isn't that nice? But that's just how it is. We have to be separate from our Creator. We have to be separate from our good. Everything's fragmented. Everything's different. You're alone. You have no power. Those are the kinds of thoughts that the ego likes to come up with. And it likes to prove to us that nothing works for us. It likes to prove to us that we aren't important, or that we're vulnerable, or that we're victimized, all of those kinds of things, so that it can, under that umbrella of destroy ourselves, it can wreak havoc on our lives. At one point or another, we accepted the idea that we're separate from our good, that we're separate from our source, and that we're all alone. And then everything that comes out of that is the ego. The ego is this part of our mind that carves out an identity. The ego exists as what it's not. It likes to refer back to you everything that you're not. You're not this, you're not that, you're not this, you're not that. And that's the opposite of God. Because God is I am. Now, sometimes the ego will try to be sly and give you the I am and then a negative. I am in trouble. I am poor. I am sick. But you see, that is I am not. It's using the I am not in a tricky way. And it's just important to understand that the ego just is going to work overtime trying to prove to you that you're not. And it's up to you whether or not you heed it, or whether you just let it be the white noise that it really is. Whether you let it be the nothing that it really is. It's up to you. until we are willing to relinquish the problems and relinquish our investments in the problems, then the ego just keeps going for another version of it and another version of it and another version of it. The ego doesn't have power over us. We have the power as to what voice we listen to, as to what motivates us. And most of the time we give our power over to the ego and say, I can't help it. I can't do anything about it. Maybe somebody comes to me with this problem that they want to get rid of, and I give them an idea of what to do. And then they say, yeah, but, and then I say, okay, well, let's look at it from this point of view. And then they say, yeah, but it becomes very obvious that they don't want to give up this problem. They say they do. They really say they want to give up this problem, but there's always another reason why they can't. They don't want to relinquish the problem because they're getting some sort of payoff. All of our problems are based on the fact that we get a payoff. And I remember the first time that I really got this. I mean, I'd heard about this, but I was skeptical of it, which is good. You should be skeptical of things. It's a good thing to be skeptical of everything. But it proved itself very clearly to me one day when I realized, oh, I do get to be right about this. I do get to feel bad about this. I do get to maybe even get sympathy for this. I get to do a lot of things if I keep this. And there's a lot of these things that I really don't feel like giving up. I do get to prove that I'm a victim. I do get to prove that I'm not good enough. I do get to prove that I'm all alone and nothing ever works for me. And then I get to have people say, oh, poor Ariel. Those are real valuable things to me, and I don't want to give those things up. Right? And when I finally got that very clearly that one day, it became very obvious to me why some of these things weren't clearing up, because I didn't want them to. I believed I wanted to get rid of these problems. I believed that I wanted to be freed from these circumstances and situations. But at the same time, I was getting a payoff or many payoffs, and I was enjoying those payoffs. So I had to make a real clear choice. Do I want to relinquish my attachment to this problem, or do I want the payoffs? I can't do both. I have to let go of the whole thing or nothing, because there's no middle ground there. I can't say, well, I want all the payoffs, but I want the problem to go. Because the best thing that can happen there is you get that same problem in a new manifestation. Similar to how sometimes people will get a divorce because they say this relationship is just horrible, and then they get the divorce, and then they get involved with a new relationship, and they pick up where they left off. It wasn't the relationship that was horrible. It was them that was horrible, at least how they related to people. It's the same kind of thing. If I'm not willing to relinquish my investment in the problem, including the payoffs for having that problem, then the best I can hope for is that, yes, that problem disappears and comes back in a different way. What's the point of that? Who knows? Because of the progressive and expansive nature of our minds, when it comes back, it'll probably come back as an even bigger deal, a bigger problem. I need to be very clear with myself, and I encourage everybody to do the same, that there are certain things that I get from problems. And the way I handle that is very pragmatically, and you may want to do this as well. I get a piece of paper out and I write down all the payoffs that I get for a problem. And I just let it come out. I don't edit at all. I just regurgitate out on a piece of paper. What do I get from this problem? So my first payoff is, and I write it down. Another payoff for having this problem is, and I write it down. Another payoff I get from having this is, and I write it down. And I just keep writing either until I get a whole page or until I keep repeating things over and over again. Now, then I look down over this list of payoffs and I see which of these things that I wrote down do I get the most emotional response from? And those are the things I want to look at, because that's where my banishing needs to be centered, is in the payoff more than the circumstance. Because that's the anchor. That's what's anchoring this problem to me. I do have a part of my mind that really craves it, that really wants it. No, it's not a healthy thing, but yes, it's there. And until I'm willing to be very clear and honest with myself that I have a neurotic need for this problem, and it's this, then that problem will not go away, no matter how many black candles I burn, no matter how many pieces of paper I rip up, no matter what I do. That problem is either going to stay or it's going to reincarnate as a different form, because I haven't gotten to the place where I can relinquish my need for the problem. For instance, I've had people that have come to me with big financial problems, and I'll notice that they have a lot of yeah buts. And I say, well, what I want to do is I want to find out what you're getting. What is your payoff for having this problem? Oh, I don't get anything from it. Okay, well, just pretend you did. Just act like you did. If you did get something from this, what would it be? Just humor me. What are some of the things that if you did get payoffs from this problem, what would they be? Just make it up. Just use your imagination. What would it be? And then they tell me something. Okay, well, what's another one that might be there? And they'd tell me another one. And I'd start writing all these down for them. We get into a whole list of payoffs. And then I say, now let's look at this list and ask really honestly, is it any big mystery why you can't get rid of this problem? Because look at all of the stuff you get. All of the egoic wealth you get. The ego loves those things. It loves that people are going to have sympathy for you. It loves that you don't have to go places that you don't want to go because you can't afford it. It loves that you have excuses to not do things. It loves that you have a reason for people to feel bad for you. It loves that you get to feel needy and have other people prove their love to you. It loves all of those little things. So it doesn't want to give that up. You have to give that up. But you can't give it up until you know it's there. And be honest with yourself that it's there. I did that once for myself with a physical condition that I just couldn't seem to get rid of. And the doctors, were just sort of treating it and nothing was working. And it wasn't anything life-threatening. It was just annoying. The banishing wasn't working. Nothing was working. And I thought, there's got to be something here that I'm not relinquishing. There's got to be something here that I'm using to anchor this problem. So let's just see what it is. And I did that same process. What are the payoffs that I'm having? And I don't even remember what they were. I think it was things like I get to have sympathy, or I get to take the day off because I don't feel good. Those kinds of things. And I remember looking at that list thinking, no wonder I don't feel good. No wonder this thing is there. I just took that list and I relinquished each and everything on that list, whether or not I believed it was true. And I just went through it. I said, I relinquish my need for sympathy. I relinquish my need to use this disease to give me permission to have a day off. I relinquish that. I now get to take any time off that I want. I don't need a disease to give me that permission. And just went through just pragmatically and basically, one thing at a time, not even ritualistically, just thinking logically as I went through each item, reasoning it out in my mind as to why I don't want these things. And I want to let go of these things. And I want to turn my back on them, leave them behind me, and realize that I could get those needs met in a much more healthy way. In fact, I remember going through that list thinking, well, what's another way I could get a day off? How about just take the day off? How about just take the day off and not have any excuse? What happens if I were willing to just take some time for myself and not have to give anybody a reason other than I'm taking the day off? By the time I got done relinquishing everything, I felt better. I literally felt better in my body. And that condition just kind of dissolved, never came back. The doctor said, oh, okay, it resolved itself. Didn't have any real big explanation for it, didn't really care. It's just like, okay, another thing I don't have to deal with, and I was able to move past it. It wasn't a real big dramatic healing or anything. It just kind of flickered out, fizzled out, and became a memory. Same thing happened with some financial problems I was having back in my 20s. And I remember going through this same exact exercise. I think it was back when I first discovered this exercise. It's probably the first thing I did it on. I wrote down all of the payoffs. What are my payoffs for having this thing? And it was like, I don't have to do things I don't want to do because I can't afford them. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what happens if I just said no? What happens if I had all the money I want and I still could say no? You could go through this and just burn those things and do a ritual. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. But every time I've used this successfully on myself, it hasn't been that. It's just been a list of things. And then I go through the list and I reason it out. I talk to myself logically and make new choices and make new decisions. And I check them off the list. I look for another way to provide whatever that neurotic need is in a way that's healthier. There's always another way to get your needs met than having this condition, right? If there's a payoff. A lot of times it's not that the payoff is the problem, it's how you're using it. For instance, there's nothing wrong with having downtime, but you don't have to be impoverished in order to get it. There's nothing wrong with having people feel compassion for you, but you don't need people to feel bad and sorry for you in order to get that. I can have people be compassionate and loving to me without being sick, without being poor, without having whatever these problems are. Reorienting the thinking, reorienting the mind to getting the need met without the condition is really all that's necessary. Usually if I can just get to the bottom of what's going on and what my payoff is and how I've not relinquished the problem because it's giving me something that I need, getting to the bottom of it and choosing to get my needs met in another way is usually all that it takes for me to let go of it. Because I've already done the banishing on it usually. I've already done that. I've already said I don't want this, but I haven't gone through that process of relinquishing my own payoffs for it. So I recommend that you try this. You take a problem, especially something that seems like it's not going away. You just can't seem to fix this one, no matter what you do. It just doesn't seem to budge. And you have to come from the point of view of, I'm going to assume that there's something in my mind that's tying me to this problem and that somehow it's giving me something that I want or I need that I haven't been willing to look at. If you come from that assumption, it's a lot easier for you to uncover what that is. If you're coming from this idea of there's no way that I have any part of this, there's no way that I have any hand in this, it may be a little bit more difficult for you to uncover those thoughts. You can still do it, but it's just not as easy to do. But if you just suspend disbelief for a moment and say, well, maybe there's a part of me that wants this problem. And if there is, I want it to be revealed to me right now. So I'm going to take out a piece of paper and I'm going to say, my payoff for having this problem is, and just see what comes up. And then I'm going to do it again. Another payoff I have in having this problem is, and I see what comes up and I write it down. I try not to think about it. I try not to edit it. I just see what comes up and regurgitate. Some of it's probably nonsense, but eventually as you start to get that flow of those things coming up, you're going to uncover some really interesting facts about why you have this thing in your life. And then it's just a matter of going through that list and reasoning it out in your mind as to why you don't need the problem in order to get these needs met. And just start thinking, what's another way that I could have my need met without this problem? And then you can turn that into a spell if you want. You could turn that into an affirmation. And sometimes all you need is just to have the realization of it. Frequently, that's all that's necessary. It's just realizing, oh, I can have people take care of me even if I'm healthy. Isn't that interesting? Or I don't really need people to take care of me because people can show their love for me in other ways. I don't need people to always take care of me in order to show that they love me. I can have people show that they love me even though I'm well, even though I'm happy. It's very powerful and it's very life-changing for you to understand the power of relinquishment. But what you want to relinquish is your investment in the problem. And your investment in the problem isn't just that you feel like having the problem. It's that on some level you believe the problem is giving you something you need. And then finding out what that something you need is and recognizing that you can get that need met in another way so that you can let go of the problem and get that need met in a way that's healthy and sustainable for you. It's a wonderful realization, and it gives you so much more power than what you had before because you're not just taking what the ego gives you and saying, well, this is as good as it gets. You're going beyond that. You're saying, wait a minute, I don't deserve to have this problem. So what's my investment in it? What is it trying to give me? And how can I get that need met in another way? And I'm just going to use the creative power of my mind to figure this out, to find this out, and to make a new decision and let this problem go. I'm going to relinquish this. I'm going to leave it behind and move forward with pure understanding that I am a spiritual being that is not beholden to my ego. I'm a spiritual being that can have all of my needs met in a wonderful way. And I can be happy, I can be healthy, I can be prosperous, and I can be free and get all my needs met without this problem. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.